Summary of the interpretation of Surah Al-Imran, verses 37. Then called upon her Lord and asked him to accept her vow, knowing that God is all-hearing and hears her supplication, and knows the sincerity of her prayer. God responded to her with His mercy. God accepted what the wife of Imran offered with an acceptance that was not ordinary, but a beautiful acceptance. Therefore, Zechariah's guardianship over her came by divine command from God Almighty. The proof of this is that the worshippers of the Holy House, Jerusalem, were all eager to be her guardians. Therefore, they drew lots, and whoever won would be Maryam's guardian. This was done by throwing their pens into the sea. Whoever's pen differed from the others would win the right to be Maryam's guardian. Indeed, by God's command, Zechariah won and became Maryam's guardian. Provide her with a wet nurse for 2 years throughout her breastfeeding period, and continued to care for her until she grew up. Verse 37 continues the story of Zechariah's ongoing care for Maryam. Whenever he wanted to feed her, he would find various kinds of provisions with her. This happened repeatedly, and he was astonished and asked her where this sustenance came from. His astonishment stemmed from the fact that no one else could provide her with anything. Maryam told him that her sustenance came from God, who provides for whomever He wills without limit. He is the God who is able to say, "Be," and it is. This statement stirred feelings in Zechariah's heart. The varied provisions that Zechariah found each time he visited Maryam, and I told him that divine providence gives without reason or limit, and that this sustenance comes from God. And God provides for whomever He wills without limit. At this point, Zechariah felt God's mercy and power, so he prayed to God to grant him righteous offspring. Part of the etiquette of supplication is that he prayed to God, saying, "Indeed, you are the hearer of supplication," because he knew that God hears and knows the sincerity of the supplication, for he prayed for righteous offspring, and he did not simply pray for offspring, but rather he wanted them to be righteous, and righteousness is obedience to God. Summary of the interpretation of verse 38 from Surah Al-Imran. When Maryam told Zechariah that sustenance comes from God, and that He is the one who provides for whomever He wills without measure, she awakened in Zechariah's heart a long-held wish, which he then prayed to God for. He felt God's power and bounty, so he called upon his Lord, saying, "My Lord, grant me." He said "my Lord" and not "O God," because the Lord is the one who nurtures. His request was for righteous offspring so that God's care would guide him and he would be raised in obedience to God. Because he knew that God provides for whomever He wills without measure, he prayed to his Lord, confident that God would provide for him even if the means of procreation were not readily available. He was old and his wife was barren. He asked God and pleaded with Him, as if saying, "I know, my Lord, that you hear me and will answer my request with the fullness of your power. O Lord, you hear me and will answer my prayer, for you know the sincerity of my intention in asking for righteous offspring who will be the inheritor of the Prophet's teachings, the inheritor of the way, and the inheritor of values."